Hello, and welcome to F1 with my uncle. I'm Matt, and joined as always by my uncle Dan. So, what are we talking about today?
Hey, Matt. Today, what we wanted to do was take a second look, kind of a second wrap up of Imola, and talk about some of the teams that we did not spend a lot of time on, some of the mid pack teams. And just kind of, because there were some interesting things that went on, and we did talk a lot about Red Bull and Ferrari and Mercedes. And we do have, I do have one piece of kind of interesting news that came out today on Sky News about Mercedes, but we'll save that for the end.
Okay.
But other than that, I kind of wanted to start with Aston Martin.
Yeah.
Aston Martin, they had and as far as the GP goes, they had a legit, like a great GP on Sunday.
Yeah, it was actually really good to see, especially after what happened in Australia. I mean, I was
hmm
thinking that their season was over. They were doomed. Like, they were just going to be an also ran back of the grid back marker. But no, they pulled it out.
that is very true. I know from qualifying for the sprint, Vettel did well. He qualified. He came out of Q3 in ninth position. Stroll didn't
Yep.
make it into Q3. Sprint race, he finished farther back. What was that, like 13th?
Yeah, I think it was 13th. He
13.
lost out quite a bit in the sprint for sure. But
But the key is that in the GP, he made up a number of places, and early
yeah,
on as well, early in the race, wound up finishing a solid 8th. He finished in
yeah,
the
he
top
recovered
10,
really well.
and Lance Stroll finished in the 10th position. So you have Aston Martin both getting points. They're getting constructor and driver championship points, both finishing in the top 10 in Imola.
Yeah, I think we did very, very briefly touch on it during the main episode, but I think it definitely merits its own focus just
hmm
because I wasn't expecting anything from them this week, and then suddenly they turn out with 2 points finishes, both of them making out 5 places throughout the race. Like
Right.
that's pretty good.
Oh
I
yeah.
gotta say.
Yeah. I think that was really interesting.
And Stroll behaved himself too. Like good for him.
That's a very good point. He did well. He didn't get himself into any trouble in this race, which was good to see. And I think after Australia, he drew too much attention to himself in a bad way. So this was a great recovery for Lance Stroll. Hats off to
Yeah.
him. Top 10 finish.
Yeah, he kept his race clean, kept it out of people's side pods and out of the wall and everything. He
hmm
was pretty firm.
hmm
So, anything else about Aston, or did we want to hit Williams?
I go for it. I think we should talk about Williams.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is that both cars finished.
hmm
They finished the race. There were no technical issues. You didn't have Albon, dive bombing up the inside and colliding with someone. He also had a clean race. They both recovered. Actually, Albon specifically, credit where it's due. He started 18th, finished 11th,
hmm
outside the points, but that was a massive improvement for him.
Oh, absolutely. And as far as reliability goes, both Aston Martin and Williams cars, all four of those cars actually finished the race.
Yeah.
They didn't deal with reliability issues.
Yeah, and I was kind of concerned with it was Albon's brakes that blew up during qualifying, right?
hmm
I was kind of concerned that something else might happen throughout the weekend, but everything was fine.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. And then anybody else, another team that we should probably just briefly talk about, and we did in the race too, but AlphaTauri.
Yeah,
Um,
actually, they both were out in Q1, weren't they? Like
I think so. In the for the qualifying for the
in
sprint.
actual qualifying, yeah.
Yeah. But they did. Sunoda did very well,
Tsunoda
and
did really well.
yeah, and Gasly, he held off Hamilton.
Yeah.
Back
Yeah.
back down in the pack, but he held him off.
Yeah.
So you have one top 10 finish for them, and then we did touch on this a little bit in the main video, but there's with McLaren, the Lando Norris on the podium for
Yeah.
McLaren. Very, very, I mean, that's amazing. But there's a
Yeah.
dichotomy with that group because, Daniel Ricciardo was the last of the running cars at the very end of the pack. Now,
Yeah.
he damaged his car in
Yeah.
the mistake that he apologized for with Science. But
Yeah. His I think it
um,
was the diffuser that had damage throughout the entire race, so not much you can do with that.
yeah, he had car damage, and that had a lot to do with his, finishing last. But the problem is, Ricardo is we've had ongoing concerns about him as far as his head being in the game. He doesn't seem to be driving this year with a lot of confidence. He seems to be
Yeah.
driving, defensively. In other words, his goal going into the race isn't to win, it's not to embarrass himself and embarrass the team. I just don't that's not a winning spirit, that's not a race driver's spirit. I do have questions as to whether his head is really in the game this year, but it's early on. Hopefully that's not the case, and we'll see that. So that's kind of a wrap up on McLaren, unless you had anything to add.
Yeah, just a little bit more about Ricardo.
Mhm,
It kind of hurts to see because he's such a likable person. I know you and I both like him a
mhm.
lot, and it's really hard to see somebody struggling that much. We've seen flashes of greatness from him in McLaren. He won in Monza last year. He's had many solid finishes, but as a whole, it seems like he's getting in his way a lot. I know he last year was kind of an anomaly because the car was so outside of his driving style.
Yeah.
But you know, even that being the case, it still affects you mentally, and so I'd really like to see the Ricardo that we saw in Red Bull, back when he first got into F1. But I don't know what it's going to take for him to get back there.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, yeah, that's a interesting statement because he left Red Bull voluntarily, which is
Yeah,
really unusual.
yeah,
But that tells us something about his personality.
yeah,
I guess what I'm thinking with him is he's super well liked. He's a gregarious guy. He's a crowd
yeah,
favorite. I know when you and I saw him at Circuit of the Americas last year in 2021, they take the drivers around before the race on a
yeah,
flatbed truck, and he wore a cowboy hat. He had a bright orange shirt, and he was waving to the crowd, big white smile, and
yeah,
everybody's, it was great to see him, and he was enjoying himself.
yeah,
But in the race car, he doesn't look happy. And,
yeah,
I think we'll see. Well, hopefully he gets past that and he
yeah,
has some really good race results and he gets his confidence back. And then you can see the happiness return to the car. And I think he's a gregarious guy. I can easily see him having a future like a David Coulthard or Jensen Button when it comes to, when he retires, being involved in broadcasting with F1.
oh
I
yeah,
think he would add a lot to that
he would
sort
be
of
really
thing.
good at that.
Yeah, and he may even do some other television and things. He's got that kind of personality, but
Yeah,
right now, he's just someone that we're gonna keep an eye on.
yeah. So the only other team we wanted to talk about briefly was Alpine. Unfortunately, Alonso's race was cut short due to the incident from Mick Schumacher spinning into him, but Ocon had a reasonably solid race. He started very far back, recovered really well up until about, I think he was running like 10th, 11th, something like that. But then he was given the penalty because of the unsafe release in the pits, and that was something that we actually misreported in the main video. We said that Hamilton finished 14th, which he did on the road, but due to that penalty from Ocon, Hamilton actually ended up finishing 13th. So needed to correct that for sure.
Mhm. And what's unfortunate about that is he just he pays attention to the team member that releases him. It's not his personal fault, but it's a team
Right.
fault that he
Yeah.
suffered for. So too bad.
Yeah.
But as a team, they have to get those things right. It was
Yeah.
a, I think I saw the bump. There was a slight bump with Lewis's car. Lewis did well to prevent that from being a worse incident in the pits.
Yeah.
And nobody's car was damaged, but it was a very unsafe release and could have been
Yeah.
worse.
I mean, they've penalized people for not even making physical contact, but just being released from the pits in an unsafe way. So
Hmm.
they when I saw that happen, I was like, he's got to get a penalty for that.
Yeah.
So, but that's actually speaking of Hamilton briefly. What is this spicy news from Mercedes?
Well, Sky News is reporting, and the report is there's a quote from Lewis. I'll read it outright. Quote, I'm out of it for sure. There's no question about that, but I'll still keep working as hard as I can to try and somehow pull it back together, somehow, unquote. So there's Lewis, and it's being reported that he's conceding the title and things
Mm,
like that. But you can't really concede a title the way you concede a game of chess. You can.
true.
I think Lewis. What I take away from this is Lewis is, and deservedly, very frustrated.
Yeah.
He's very frustrated with the car. The four races, he's so many points behind. The lead drivers at this point. He's not used to being in this position, and I think, frankly, he's tired of having the cameras in his face when they're running so badly, and he's just saying, "Guys, look, I'm out of it. Leave me alone. I'm not a
Mm,
contender." I
yeah.
don't think I
Okay.
think I think he just quits wanting to have to explain every single race or every single qualifying why they aren't doing better. I think he's tired of it.
Yeah,
And
I
if
think that's a great point. It's got to get really old really quickly when
mhm,
every single reporter in every single interview is asking you the same question.
yeah,
That's got to be tiring.
it would frustrate me.
Yeah.
If it was me, I would be really tired of it.
Yeah.
I know that they asked one thing that was kind of good about Max is they asked him after the race because he lapped Lewis twice in the race, first time lap 40, but somebody kind of wanted to know what
Well,
he had to
he
say.
only lapped him twice because he pit and then lapped him again.
Yeah, but he wanted to, so he wasn't 2 laps down, is what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's a very good point. And what Verstappen said was, he said they've been slow all year, so for me, it's not really anything exciting. It just happens. And I thought that was a very calm, measured quote. It's a
Yeah.
fact. Verstappen just stated a fact about it.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really good.
Yeah, Verstappen's that kind of guy. He's a very factual,
Hmm.
maybe blunt is an accurate term, but like he's not going to sit there and wax lyrical about things. He's just very direct and to the point. And for him, that's what it was. It was just he was just lapping a slower car. That's all it was.
Yeah, and I think the key is he didn't gloat. He
Yeah,
wasn't gloating over the fact,
yeah,
and it's not his personality to do that. Sometimes reporters look for those sorts of things.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and then the other thing that I liked in here was a quote by Christian Horner, because they asked him about what about Mercedes performance and Lewis specifically. And so what Christian said was, quote, obviously very tough for him today. He's not forgotten how to drive. It's only 5 races ago they were fighting in Abu Dhabi. And what he's referring to is the last race of the 2021 season where,
right,
you know, Max and Lewis were fighting it out until the very end.
right.
To continue with the quote, they'll sort their issues out, I'm sure. We don't write anyone off in this championship because there's such a long, long way to go, unquote. And I think Christian's comment is the most measured and the most reasonable of everybody. I think Lewis is kind of frustrated and wants to get the attention off of him until they fix their problems. But the fact of the matter is, if Mercedes, shows up at Miami or the race after that with a competitive car, it's very conceivable that Lewis could start winning races and take points away from Leclerc and Max. And now we have a three-way title for the lead. It could happen.
Yeah,
So, and Christian is simply recognizing that.
yeah, yeah. I think the kind of interesting thing about this whole situation, because even Toto Wolff said something along the lines of, "We don't deserve to be champions this year," and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And
Hmm.
the what it looks like to me is Toto and Hamilton being very open and very honest about where they currently stand. And yet the press, because they're the press, they're having a field day with it. Oh, Lewis is conceding the championship. Oh,
Yeah.
Toto is throwing in the towel. Just all this nonsense. But there is a point, which is they're in a rough spot, but a lot of this I think is mountains out of molehills. It's just kind of the way things are currently,
Hey, can I put my tinfoil hat on and say something?
Go for it.
Okay, tinfoil hat theory. Or maybe they know they have really good parts coming and they're going to start winning races and they're trying to remove all expectation to make it that much more exciting when it happens. You never know.
I mean, you never know. Mercedes, I wouldn't put it past them. Mercedes has been such a strong team for
Exactly.
so long that
All right.
if we get to the end of the season and they're not at all on the pace still, I
Mhm.
think that will be more surprising. So,
Yeah. Yeah. If things continue and if they're being honest, tinfoil hats off now. I think it, I'm thinking that I heard somewhere that they have a new floor coming for Silverstone. Well,
yeah.
Silverstone is 10 on the calendar. That doesn't mean they won't have other problems. So I'm thinking they'll be vying for a solid third, maybe second. Lewis will absolutely be on the podium sometime this year. What
Yeah.
position he'll be in, who knows? But he will be on the podium.
Yeah.
That would shock me to find out he's not on a podium this year.
Yeah.
But
Well, he
anyway,
already was in Jeddah. He inherited third when both Red Bulls
That's true.
retired.
That's true.
But yeah, the new floor in Silverstone is round 10, and so that's almost halfway through the season. So a lot's happened by then that, assuming that and whatever other parts they add, like, salvages the car, that's a lot of work to undo by then. So we'll have to wait and
Yeah.
see.
Well, their car looked worse in Imola than it did in Australia, which is just really strange. But it looked
Yeah.
much worse to me, and it performed worse.
Could have been due to other teams having upgrades though.
Yeah, it
But
could be, or it just could be that track was tight and fast, and
yeah, didn't suit them.
with a lack of grip, and maybe that just really caused
Okay.
extra problems. Or they could have made changes that just didn't work. They were in parked for me. They had to live with it, and you never know. But
Yeah.
anyway, I think they'll be back. I
Yep.
think, like I said, Lewis will have future podiums. I think he will but it may be toward the end of the year, and I don't even know that it's going to be satisfying to him. But that kind of but that's speculation. We just wanted to get the news out there. It was on Sky News today, article dated Monday. And that's all I have. Do you have anything else, Matt?
No, that should do it for us for today. We will be back Monday. It is a bye week before Miami, and we will have a topic that we'll be diving into. So look forward to that. And until then, thanks so much for watching, and take care of yourselves.